The Gettysburg battlefield. During the American Civil War, soldiers on both sides of the conflict thought of their wives and girlfriends back home. The song Lorena was a song that touched their hearts and souls. One Confederate officer even attributed the South's defeat to this song. He reasoned that upon hearing the mournful ballad, the soldiers grew so homesick that they lost their effectiveness as a fighting force.
Well, the years creep slowly by, Lorena. The snow is on the grass again, and the sun's low down in the sky, Lorena. The frost gleams where the flowers have been, but the heart beats on as warmly now as when the summer days were nigh. The sun could never dip so low, adown affection's cloudless sky. 100 months have passed, Lorena, since last I held your hand in mine, and I felt your pulse beat fast, Lorena, though mine beat faster far than mine. 100 months since flowery May, when all the hilly slope we climb to watch the dying of the day and hear the distant church bell chime. We loved each other then, Lorena, more than we'd ever dare to tell. And what we might have been, Lorena, had but our lovings prospered well. But then 'tis past, the years are gone. I'll not call up the shadowed form. I'll say to them, lost years, sleep on. Sleep on, nor heed life's pelting storms. It matters little now, Lorena. The past is in the eternal past. Our heads will soon lie low, Lorena. Life's tide is ebbing out so fast. There is a future, oh thank God, of life. This is so small a part. 'Tis dust to dust beneath the sod. Up there, 'tis heart to heart. Up there, 'tis heart to heart. Our flag is proudly floating on the land and on the main. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Beneath it oft we've conquered and will conquer oft again. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Our Dixie forever, she's never had a loss. Down with the eagle and up with the cross. We will rally around the bonny flag, we'll rally once again. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Our gallant boys have marched to the rolling of the drums. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. And the leaders in charge cry out, come, boys, come. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Our Dixie forever, she's never had a loss. Down with the eagle and up with the cross. We will rally around the bonny flag, we'll rally once again. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. They have laid down their lives on the bloody battlefield. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Their motto is resistance to the tyrants never yield. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom. Our Dixie forever, she's never had a loss. Down with the eagle and up with the cross. We will rally around the bonny flag, we'll rally once again. Shout, shout the battle cry of freedom.
In May of 1863, Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army of Northern Virginia had scored a smashing victory over the Army of the Potomac at Chancellorsville. Brimming with confidence, Lee decided to go on the offensive and invade the North for a second time. The first invasion had ended at Antietam the previous fall. In addition to bringing the conflict out of Virginia and diverting Northern troops from Vicksburg, where the Confederates were under siege, Lee hoped to gain recognition of the Confederacy by Britain and France and strengthen the cause of Northern Copperheads who favored peace. On the Union side, President Abraham Lincoln had lost confidence in the Army of the Potomac's commander, Joseph Hooker, who seemed reluctant to confront Lee's army after the defeat at Chancellorsville. On June 28th, Lincoln named Major General George Gordon Meade to succeed Hooker. Meade immediately ordered the pursuit of Lee's army of 75,000. Which by then had crossed the Potomac River into Maryland and marched on into southern Pennsylvania. Upon learning that the Army of the Potomac was on its way, Lee planned to assemble his army in the prosperous crossroads town of Gettysburg, 35 miles southwest of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. One of the Confederate divisions in A.P. Hill's command approached the town in search of supplies early on July 1st, only to find that 2 Union cavalry brigades had arrived the previous day. As the bulk of both armies headed toward Gettysburg, Confederate forces, led by Hill and Richard Ewell, were able to drive the outnumbered Federal defenders back through town to Cemetery Hill, located a half-mile to the south. Seeking to press his advantage before more Union troops could arrive, Lee gave discretionary orders to attack Cemetery Hill to Ewell, who had taken command of the Army of Northern Virginia's Second Corps after Lee's most trusted general, Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson, was mortally wounded at Chancellorsville. Ewell declined to order the attack, considering the Federal position too strong. His reticence would earn him many unfavorable comparisons to the Great Stonewall. By dusk, a Union corps under Winfield Scott Hancock had arrived and extended a defensive line along Cemetery Ridge to the hill known as Little Round Top. 3 more Union corps arrived overnight to strengthen its defenses. As the next day dawned, the Union Army had established strong positions from Culp's Hill to Cemetery Ridge. Lee assessed his enemy's positions and determined, against the advice of his defensively minded second-in-command, James Longstreet, to attack the Federals where they stood. He ordered Longstreet to lead an attack on the Union left, while Ewell's corps would strike to right near Culp's Hill. Though his orders were to attack as early in the day as possible, Longstreet didn't get his men into position until 4 p.m., when they opened fire on the Union Corps commanded by Daniel Sickles. Over the next several hours, bloody fighting raged along Sickles' line, which stretched from the nest of boulders known as Devil's Den into a peach orchard, as well as in a nearby wheat field and on the slopes of Little Round Top. Thanks to fierce fighting by one Minnesota regiment, the Federals were able to hold Little Round Top, but lost the Orchard Field and Devil's Den. Sickles himself was seriously wounded. Ewell's men had advanced on the Union forces at Culp's Hill and East Cemetery Hill in coordination with Longstreet's 4 p.m. attack, but Union forces had stalled their attack by dusk. Both armies suffered extremely heavy losses on July 2nd, with 9,000 or more casualties on each side. The combined casualty total from 2 days of fighting came to nearly 35,000, the longest 2-day toll of the war. Early on the morning of July 3rd, Union forces of the 12th Army Corps pushed back a Confederate threat against Culp's Hill after a 7-hour firefight and regained their strong position. Believing his men had been on the brink of victory the day before, Lee decided to send 3 divisions, preceded by an artillery barrage, against the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. Fewer than 15,000 troops, led by a division under George Pickett, would be tasked with marching some 3/4 of a mile across open fields to attack dug-in Union infantry positions. Despite Longstreet's protests, Lee was determined, and the attack, later known as Pickett's Charge, went forward around 3 p.m. after an artillery bombardment by some 150 Confederate guns. Union infantry opened fire on the advancing rebels from behind stone walls, while regiments from Vermont, New York, and Ohio hit both of the enemy's flanks. Caught from all sides, barely half of the Confederates survived, and Pickett's division lost 2/3 of its men. As the survivors stumbled back to their opening position, Lee and Longstreet scrambled to shore up their defensive line after the failed assault. His hopes of a victorious invasion of the North dashed, Lee waited for a Union counterattack on July 4th, but it never came. That night, in heavy rain, the Confederate general withdrew his decimated army toward Virginia. Though the cautious Meade would be criticized for not pursuing the enemy after Gettysburg,